Unaware his wife was the secret majority shareholder of his company, husband demoted her at work and promoted his mistress. What happened at the board meeting crushed them both. He didn't just change her job title. One company-wide email changed the leadership chart. Lauren Carter's name dropped beneath people she used to manage, while a new woman's title appeared above hers. That morning, in a bright glass office, the team realignment, effective immediately email hit every screen. Lauren stood in the hallway, staring at the chart on her phone as Jenna Hayes' promotion to senior operations lead appeared right where Lauren's influence used to be. Jenna, the same woman Lauren had seen the day before, laughing a little too closely with her husband Daniel through the reflection of a glass wall. Inside the corner office, Daniel smiled and called it strategy. To the staff, he introduced Jenna as part of the future of the company. To Lauren, he said coldly, "You're better suited for support roles. Don't take it personal." Outside that office door, employees avoided her eyes, but everyone had heard the whispers. Their CEO had been spending a lot of time with Jenna after hours. What Daniel never bothered to ask, never cared to really know, was how this company began. How years before he ever signed his first big contract, Lauren sat in a tiny room, working 2 jobs and quietly investing in his little tech idea through a small holding company called LRC Holdings. How she kept meticulous records, backups, and signed agreements locked away in a drawer he never opened, because numbers bored him. How on paper, that quiet holding company now controlled most of Carter's systems, and she was the owner behind it. So when an emergency board meeting was called to discuss leadership misconduct and governance concerns, Daniel walked into that boardroom confident, Jenna sitting close by, convinced he would talk his way out of anything. He still believed he was the one in control. He still believed his wife was just support. He had no idea the woman he just humiliated at work was actually the majority shareholder about to decide his future. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Lauren's story be buried the way her work once was. When you hit that button, you stand with every quiet person who was overlooked, used, and finally heard. Please subscribe now and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The sound hit first, sharp, sudden, and metallic. A drawer slammed somewhere inside the quiet house, loud enough to make Lauren Carter's heart jump. She froze at her desk, a pen in her hand, and stared toward the dark hallway. For a moment, everything in the room felt tense, almost trembling. Then she exhaled slowly when she realized the noise had come from the air vent shifting. The old system always knocked when it turned off at night. The house settled again, like it always did after 11 p.m. Her pulse eased, and the intensity slowly melted into the soft glow of the desk lamp. The room looked peaceful now. Financial books stacked neatly, charts spread across the wooden surface, sticky notes arranged with precision and care. Numbers, projections, and possibilities surrounded her like familiar friends. This small home office was where she felt most herself. Lauren was 34 years old, soft-spoken, sharp-minded, and patient. People often underestimated her because she never raised her voice. They didn't know she had spent years building herself piece by piece, long before she married Daniel Carter. Daniel, her husband, slept down the hall. He was 36, charming, ambitious, and currently the CEO of a fast-growing tech company, Carter Systems. To outsiders, he looked like the brilliant self-made leader. Only Lauren understood how much foundation she had quietly built beneath him. At work, her title was Director of Finance and Strategy, though most people just called her Lauren from Finance. Daniel was the face of the company. She was the numbers behind the curtain. She looked at him differently than the world did, but not because of resentment. No, because she had loved him once with a deep, honest belief. Back when she was 21, life had been nothing but hard edges. She worked days at a small accounting firm, nights cleaning offices, and used every spare minute to study finance. She remembered coming home after midnight with textbooks under her arm, hands aching, eyes burning, but her spirit refusing to give up. That younger version of herself moved like a ghost inside her memory now. A tired girl with dreams too big for her income, carrying stacks of notes and highlighting formulas between bus rides. During those nights, she discovered something she never expected, an instinct for investing. She began putting small amounts of money into tiny companies with potential. One of them was Daniel's idea back when it was nothing but a risky concept on an online platform. She invested without telling anyone. She had seen family arguments, cousins tearing each other apart over who deserved more. She promised herself she would never let money turn into a weapon, so secrecy became her protection. Instead of investing in her own name, she created a quiet holding company, LRC Holdings, under her maiden initials. On paper, it looked like just another early investor. In reality, it was her. Her investment grew quietly year after year, unnoticed by everyone, including Daniel. She kept every document inside a locked drawer in this very room. Early in their marriage, he jokingly said paperwork made him itch, and he hated dealing with anything that looked like taxes. She smiled back then, never imagining how important that drawer would become. Now, years later, she sat at her desk, flipping through updated financial notes for Carter Systems. Charts glowed on the screen. She traced her finger across a rising graph and whispered, almost like a prayer, "If this company grows, we grow together." It wasn't just a line. It was her heart speaking. She believed in partnership, in building things side by side. She believed in him enough to invest not only her money but her life. She opened a spreadsheet she had built for herself, one she never shared with anyone at work. A single line stood out. LRC Holdings, 52% controlling stake. Her own, quiet, hidden in plain sight. She highlighted the next figure, nodding gently. But as she leaned back, something strange tugged at her attention. Her phone buzzed against the desk. She glanced at the screen. A breaking news alert flashed. Carter Systems stock experiences sudden dip after internal rumors of restructuring. Her body stiffened. Stock dip? Rumors? At this hour? She tapped the article, eyes narrowing with concern. It mentioned unexpected internal changes, possible department realignment, and unconfirmed reports of new leadership roles being announced. Her heartbeat grew uneven. "What internal changes?" she whispered. The house felt colder. Her fingers hovered above her keyboard. She wasn't easily shaken by numbers. She lived in them. But something about this didn't make sense. Not with the steady growth she'd been tracking. Not with the strong quarterly performance. Not with the plans Daniel told her they were preparing as recently as last week. Unless something else was happening. Something he hadn't told her. She stood slowly, her gaze drifting to the far corner of the room. The locked drawer, the place where her original investment documents, ownership percentages, and early company purchase agreements lay hidden. Where the truth of who really owned Carter Systems slept quietly. For the first time in a long time, the drawer seemed heavier. Her phone buzzed again. Another alert. Internal source. New department leadership changes expected tomorrow. Leadership changes? Leaked to the press before being announced internally? Her breath caught. Something tightened inside her chest. Not fear, but a quiet warning. "Something's off," she whispered, and deep down a quiet instinct whispered something even sharper. "Be ready." The room exploded with laughter. Fast, loud, and too eager. Daniel Carter had just finished another one of his sharp jokes during the morning staff meeting, and every employee reacted like it was the funniest thing they had ever heard. Chairs shook. A few people clapped. Someone wiped their eyes as if the joke had been overwhelming. The intensity of the moment hit Lauren the second she stepped inside the conference room. Her chest tightened. The laughter felt off. Not natural, not real. It felt like pressure masquerading as humor, the kind of laughter people used when they feared the person in front of them. As director of finance and strategy, she usually sat close to the front. Today, she slipped along the side wall instead, still shaken from the late-night news alert and the lack of any explanation from Daniel that morning. Daniel stood at the center of the room like he owned the air everyone breathed. Tall, polished, confident, almost too confident. His smile was wide, sharp, and bright, but something about it made her stomach twist. It wasn't warm. It wasn't real. This was not the man she used to study finance next to on their old apartment floor. This was someone harder, colder. The laughter softened as she moved to stand along the side of the room. Her smile appeared, but it didn't reach her eyes, and Daniel didn't even glance her way. She had hardly slept after seeing the stock dip alert hours earlier. She had checked the market again before leaving the house. The price was still lower than usual, chatter online still active. She expected him to mention it in the meeting, to reassure the team, to reassure her. But here he was performing, soaking in the attention like he needed it more than oxygen. He clicked to the next slide in his presentation. And that, he said proudly, is why leadership needs to make bold moves. Any questions? Suggestions? His eyes scanned the room, already knowing no one would challenge him. Lauren lifted her hand gently. The room froze for a second. Daniel's expression flickered, just enough to reveal annoyance, before he forced a smile. Yes, Lauren, he asked. She stepped forward slightly. I think it would be useful to check the latest stock activity. There are unusual movements, and it may affect the decision you're presenting. A few employees glanced at her, then at Daniel. Some nodded quietly. They all knew she was the one who understood the numbers best. Daniel let out a small laugh, dismissing, loud enough for everyone to hear. Lauren, stock charts go up and down. It's normal. Let's stay focused on real strategy. Her jaw tightened. He didn't even ask what she meant. He knew she didn't panic over normal market noise. Before she could speak again, he moved on. Next suggestion, he said, already pointing to another slide. Her hand lowered slowly. The first crack had appeared, and everyone in the room had seen it. The meeting ended with more forced laughter and polite clapping. People rushed out, eager to escape the tension they pretended not to feel. Lauren stayed near the back, watching Daniel pack up his laptop. Every movement he made was rushed, impatient, almost irritated. She approached him carefully. Daniel, can we talk privately for a moment? She asked. He didn't look up. Not now. I have another meeting, he said flatly. You always have another meeting. His head snapped up then, not angry but defensive. What's that supposed to mean? He asked. She swallowed her frustration. It just means I'm concerned. The stock dip, the talk of restructuring, and now this push for bold moves. None of this lines up with what you told me last week. He stiffened. Leave the company matters to me. That sentence hit her like cold water. He used to say our plans. Now it was leave it to me. She studied his face, searching for the reason, the shift, the distance that had crept in like a shadow across their marriage. Before she could speak again, his phone vibrated. A message lit up the screen. Daniel saw it, smirked slightly, and angled the phone away from her so she couldn't read it. Her chest tightened. He never hid his phone from her before. Daniel, what was that? She asked softly. He slipped the phone into his pocket. Nothing you need to worry about, he said. Another crack, a deeper one. He brushed past her, mumbling something about appointments. She watched him walk away, shoulders high, posture sharp, arrogance trailing behind him like a new cologne. Something was changing inside him. She could feel it. She just didn't know the shape yet. As she stepped out of the room, voices drifted from behind a half-open door. Two employees, Mark and Elise, stood close together, whispering. Both were mid-level managers, always careful, always quiet. They didn't know she was near. Mark spoke first. I'm telling you, he's been spending a lot of time with Jenna lately. Elise whispered back, yeah, way more than normal, and she's been staying late with him. Everyone's noticed. Lauren's hand froze on the doorframe. Her breath caught. Jenna? Her pulse thudded painfully. The name echoed through her mind like a warning bell. Who is Jenna? A cold thought flickered through her mind. Whoever Jenna is, she's involved in whatever's happening next. The sound of sharp, hushed laughter sliced through the hallway like a blade. Lauren froze mid-step. The intensity hit her instantly. Too bright, too flirtatious, too wrong. She stood outside the glass-walled collaboration room on the third floor. The blinds were half open, just enough to show silhouettes and movement inside. She edged closer. Through the reflection on the glass wall, she saw Daniel, her husband, leaning much too close to a woman she recognized only from email signatures and office chatter. The woman was around 30, tall, sharply dressed, with long blonde hair and an expression that carried confidence mixed with something sharper. That woman was Jenna Hayes. Lauren had heard her name whispered minutes ago. Now she finally saw her properly. Jenna was the new senior project coordinator, hired 6 months earlier into operations. She had never reported directly to Lauren, HR had placed her under a different division at Daniel's insistence. People said she was ambitious, skilled, and always eager to impress. Now it was clear she was eager for something else too. Daniel laughed softly at something Jenna said. His hand brushed her arm. Too familiar, too casual to be innocent. Jenna tilted her head, smiling up at him with a look that was not professional at all. Lauren's heart slammed against her ribs, the shock so sudden that her hand automatically pressed against the glass wall. Her breath came out shaky. It was too intense, too much, too close. For a second she thought about walking in, about confronting both of them in front of everyone. But years of discipline and self-control held her still. She stepped back quickly, forcing herself to breathe. The hallway blurred for a moment before she forced herself to steady. She closed her eyes for 1 second, and her mind pulled her backward, years earlier, to a tiny room where everything was simpler. Lauren and Daniel sat on the floor of their one-bedroom apartment. Papers, sticky notes, and a beat-up laptop lay scattered around them. Daniel looked nervous as he practiced a pitch for early investors. His voice trembled with every line. Lauren smiled, touched his shoulder gently, and said, "Relax. You already know this. You built it. Just talk like you believe in it." He took a deep breath and tried again. She clapped for him when he nailed it. She cooked cheap noodles afterward because that was all they could afford. She listened to him rant about software bugs and deadlines. She believed in him even when he doubted himself. And she invested in his dream long before it became profitable. The flashback faded. Now standing in the hallway of the successful company she helped him grow, she felt an ache settle deep inside her chest. How quickly he had forgotten all those nights, all those early sacrifices, all those whispered promises of building a life together. Lauren opened her eyes and stared again at the glass wall. Inside the room, Daniel leaned closer to Jenna, pointing something out on her tablet. Their shoulders touched. Jenna laughed again, too softly, too intimately. Lauren's hand trembled. She hid it by gripping her folder tightly. "Maybe it's nothing," she whispered to herself. But even she didn't believe that. Her smile, the one she forced across her face, felt like a cracked mask. Still, she stood tall. She refused to make a scene. She refused to accuse without proof. Her mind worked differently, always calm, always observing, always calculating. She stepped forward again, but this time with purpose. Through the glass reflection, she noticed something unsettling. Daniel never once looked toward the hallway, not even out of habit. He was completely absorbed in Jenna. And Jenna? Jenna's eyes flickered toward the glass, her gaze locked on Lauren's reflection. Slow, deliberate. Jenna's smirk formed, not big, not bold, but sharp and knowing. A smirk meant for someone she saw as no threat. Lauren's stomach twisted painfully. She turned, walking away with careful steps so no one could hear the crack forming inside her. As she walked down the hall, she passed photos displayed along the wall, company milestones taken over the years. In a picture from 5 years ago, Daniel stood holding his first award. Lauren remembered that event clearly. She had helped him prepare that whole week, rewriting his speech, giving him confidence when he doubted himself. But in that photo, his arm was around her shoulder, pulling her close. Now? He didn't even glance when she walked by. A distance had formed, the kind that didn't happen overnight. The kind that grew only when someone else stepped into the empty spaces. She stopped at the elevator, breathing slowly, steadying herself. Her phone buzzed. A calendar alert appeared. Leadership announcement. Tomorrow morning, all staff. Her eyes narrowed. Leadership announcement? No one had told her about it. She should have helped prepare numbers, slides, at least forecasts. Instead, she was finding out through a generic calendar invite sent by the CEO's assistant. She tapped the elevator button. The doors opened with a soft ding. Just before she entered, a voice echoed from behind. "Mrs. Carter?" She turned. It was Jenna, standing at the end of the hall, lips curved slightly, eyes glinting with confidence that wasn't innocent. "Leaving so soon?" Jenna asked sweetly, but her tone carried something sharper beneath it. Lauren didn't answer, but Jenna's eyes flicked down the hallway toward Daniel's office, and then the smirk returned, deeper, bolder, undeniable. That smirk wasn't for politeness. It was a message, A claim, a warning, a challenge. The elevator doors began to close. Jenna watched the reflection of Lauren disappear with a look that said, "You're too late." As the elevator descended, a quiet thought rose in Lauren's mind. If tomorrow brings leadership changes, I'm not the one he plans to lift. The email hit the company like a silent explosion. Lauren felt it before she even opened it. People in the hallway gasped, heads snapped toward screens, and the atmosphere shifted with sudden intensity. She heard someone whisper, "Oh my God," and another voice mutter, "You've got to be kidding." Her phone vibrated in her hand with the notification. Team realignment, effective immediately. The subject line alone made her stomach drop. Her thumb tapped it open, and the words punched the air from her lungs. Her job title, Director of Finance and Strategy, had been moved down the chart. Lower, placed beneath roles she used to manage. Meanwhile, Jenna Hayes, Senior Project Coordinator, Senior Operations Lead, a massive jump, a promotion given overnight and given publicly. Her mind spun. This was big, public, humiliating. A reorganization of the entire team structure, and somehow, without warning, her role had been quietly buried inside it. She knew company policy. Major changes to leadership roles were supposed to be discussed one-on-one before public announcements. HR should have called her the day before. No one had, which meant Daniel had pushed this through quickly, likely at the last minute, using his CEO authority and pressuring HR and the board to sign off. She stood still in the hallway as people pretended not to look at her. The intensity around her grew tighter, sharper. Someone quickly closed their laptop when they made eye contact with her. Someone else walked faster in the opposite direction. The silence that followed her was heavy with pity. It was a betrayal announced to the entire company. She took a deep breath and forced her feet to move. She needed answers, not rumors, not assumptions. Answers from the one person who owed her respect, her husband. She walked through the glass corridor toward his office. Every step felt heavier than the last. Inside, Daniel sat behind his desk, typing something with an expression that was far too calm for the chaos outside. He didn't look up when she walked in. "Daniel," she said softly, closing the door behind her. He glanced up only after finishing his sentence. His tone stayed casual, almost cold. "Oh, Lauren, what's going on?" Her voice stayed steady. "The email. My title was changed." He leaned back in his chair as if this were a small detail, as if he hadn't shattered her dignity in front of hundreds of employees. "Yes," he said lightly. "It's part of the realignment plan. I talked about it with the board and HR." She blinked. "But you never discussed it with me." His jaw tightened and he shrugged. "It wasn't necessary. This is business." Her voice trembled before she steadied it. "A demotion? Without warning?" "It's not a demotion," he said quickly, too quickly. "It's repositioning. We need visible, energetic leaders at the front. You're better suited for support roles, back-end work. You're not leadership material." Those words cut deeper than shouting ever could. She stepped closer. "Daniel, I've been part of this company from the start. You know He lifted a hand to silence her. "Let's not make this emotional," he said. Her heart cracked silently. Not emotional? Her entire life had been tied to this company. Her early investments helped build it. Her nights, her sacrifices, her loyalty, they helped shape it. And he dismissed her like a burden. She swallowed the pain slowly, forcing herself not to break. Lauren studied his face, searching for the man he used to be. She found nothing but impatience. "Why Jenna?" she asked. Her voice didn't rise, it didn't shake. It was just a question. His eyes flickered. Guilt, annoyance, something darker. "She's sharp," he said. "Young, fast, ambitious. She works harder than most people here. She's a good fit for leadership." Lauren's chest tightened. He had never once praised her this way, not even when she carried him through his first presentations, not even when she invested in his dream. She breathed in quietly. "Daniel, if there's something you need to tell me—" "There's nothing," he cut in. He closed his laptop with a sharp snap, signaling the end of the conversation. "I have another meeting," he said. "We'll talk later." He brushed past her, leaving her alone in his office, surrounded by the cold echo of his words. As Lauren stepped out into the hallway, her vision blurred with hurt, but she kept walking. Her feet moved toward the elevator on autopilot. Then she heard a voice behind her, a woman's voice. Jenna, soft, mocking, dripping with confidence. She won't fight back. She never does. A few people laughed quietly. Lauren stopped mid-step. The words stabbed deeper than any promotion announcement ever could. Her breath left her in a painful rush. She didn't turn. She didn't speak, but her eyes went cold, dangerously cold. Something inside her shifted, something quiet but powerful, something he wouldn't see coming. As she pressed the elevator button, a single thought whispered in her mind. If they think I won't fight, they're about to learn who I really am. The door slammed behind her with a crack loud enough to shake the shelves. Lauren hadn't meant to close it that hard, but the intensity boiling inside her, hurt, confusion, humiliation, burst out in that single motion, leaving the room trembling with the force of it. The small home office was dark except for the thin strip of hallway light under the door. She stood still, chest rising and falling fast, fingers curled tight. The silence pressed against her like a heavy weight. Her world had shifted in one day. Public demotion, Jenna's smirk, whispered betrayals. Now she needed the truth. Not guesses, not emotions, real solid facts. She flipped on the desk lamp. A warm circle of light spread across the wooden surface, revealing the organized folders and labeled drives she kept here. This was her sanctuary, the room no one entered unless invited. Not even Daniel, especially not Daniel. Lauren drew a long breath and sat down. Her hands hovered over the keyboard. Years ago, when the company was still small, she had built a backup structure for Carter Systems' earliest financial records. She had done it because she believed the company would grow and they'd need a safe system later. Daniel laughed back then, teasing her, saying, "Numbers bore me to death. You handle the boring stuff." He never bothered to learn where she kept anything or how the system worked. Even now, after the demotion email, IT hadn't removed her high-level access yet. Realignment notices moved faster than permission updates. That was his mistake. She opened her company laptop, connected through the secure VPN, and signed in with her still active finance credentials. The screen came to life. Company dashboards, internal logs, the digital veins of the business she helped build. She clicked into the archived financial logs, old spreadsheets, early contracts, investment trails, everything she saved since the beginning. It felt strange, seeing the quiet evidence of her support, her faith. She had created this path long before Daniel had any idea what success looked like. Her chest ached. This company was part of her story, part of her heart. But tonight, that heart needed proof. She opened the newest folders. Right away, something didn't add up. A list of expenses appeared on the screen. Hotel stays, strategy meetings, high-end dinners, none of which matched the budget logs she reviewed months earlier. Her brows pulled together. Lakeview Inn, 2 guests. Business dinner, 2 plates. Executive suite, 1 night. She clicked deeper. The financial tags were labeled business development, but the signatures were Daniel's, and approvals came from his CEO account instead of going through normal finance review. Her throat tightened. Then another column caught her eye. Project bonus, J. Hayes, an extra $12,000, authorized yesterday, unauthorized, unnecessary, and hidden in a sub-account that wasn't meant for bonuses. Her breath started coming faster. She clicked again, scrolling through line after line. Fraudulent-seeming expenses tied to Jenna. Raises processed outside standard HR approval channels. Hotel meetings between Daniel and Jenna labeled as strategy sessions. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a mix-up. It was deliberate. Her hand shook against the mouse. A thought struck her suddenly, one Daniel never expected. If he approved these expenses, there would be communication behind them. Emails, deleted emails. But she knew how to find those. Back when they started, she and the then IT manager had set up an automatic backup server that stored copies of all company emails for compliance reasons. Only the 2 of them knew the old admin access. The IT manager had moved on years ago. No one ever bothered to close the legacy route. She opened the backup console and typed in the admin passcode she created years ago. The screen blinked. A loading bar appeared. When it finished, a flood of deleted emails filled the screen. Messages Daniel thought were gone forever. Her heart pounded painfully as she filtered by his address and Jenna's. She clicked the first one. Dinner was perfect. Let's meet again tomorrow. Same place? Daniel. Her hand slammed over her mouth. She clicked another. Don't worry, Jenna. I'll take care of your promotion. She won't make noise. Her breath caught. Then another. She's too focused on the numbers to notice anything. We're safe. Lauren's fingers slipped off the mouse. Her whole body trembled, absorbing each line like a blow. The betrayal was no longer suspicion. It was real, documented, cold. She kept scrolling and saw a different kind of email. One not to Jenna, but from an outside law firm. The subject line made her freeze. Emergency board session, allegations and shareholder review. Her eyes widened. She clicked it open. The message mentioned serious concerns about executive conduct, financial irregularities, and a planned emergency board meeting later that week. It also referenced a controlling shareholder connected to LRC Holdings and the need to confirm beneficial ownership. Her name, hidden behind those 3 letters. She inhaled so suddenly she almost choked. The VPN timed out with a warning pop-up, forcing her to log back in. The email window vanished from the screen, but it didn't matter. She had seen enough. The board was already moving. They were looking at Daniel, and they were about to look at whoever owned LRC Holdings. Her. Lauren's chair pushed back fast, scraping the floor. She whispered, voice shaking, "What have you done, Daniel?" And then more quietly as the pieces clicked together, "What have I allowed you to do with what I built?" Her eyes stayed locked on the dark login screen, as if something inside it had looked back at her. Something big, something dangerous, something she couldn't ignore anymore. In the silence, one quiet thought crept into her mind. I need help before this gets worse. The car door slammed so hard the sound echoed through the empty parking lot. Lauren dropped into the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel as if it were the only thing holding her together. Her breath came in sharp, unsteady bursts. The intensity inside her chest was so strong she could barely move. Her hands trembled violently. Everything she saw in that dark office, the hotel expenses, the strategy dinners, the hidden bonus to Jenna, the deleted emails, the legal message about an emergency board session and controlling shareholder connected to LRC Holdings, kept replaying in her mind like a nightmare on repeat. Her heart raced. Her thoughts screamed. Her world had completely shifted in a single day. She pressed her forehead against the steering wheel, tears finally slipping down her cheeks. Silent, painful, heavy. For a moment, she let the darkness swallow her whole. This was the deepest cut she had ever felt. Her breathing slowed, her shoulders lowered, and in the quiet of the parked car, her mind drifted into a memory she never expected to visit tonight. A younger version of herself, maybe 20, tired but full of hope, sat beside Daniel in their tiny old living room. Their furniture had been cheap, their meals simple, but their dreams enormous. He had held her hands and told her, "One day, we'll build something amazing together." She remembered how warm his eyes were, how he looked at her like she was his anchor, and she remembered her own words, soft, trusting, real. "I believe in us, Daniel." She had believed with her whole heart. The memory faded slowly, leaving only the cold truth behind. Her voice cracked as she whispered to the empty car, "You built nothing alone." "I did." This was not bitterness. This was clarity. The demotion, the lies, the secret meetings, the betrayal, all of it sharpened her. Every piece of pain turned into something harder, steadier, colder. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. The sadness drained. The numbness settled. And from that numbness, something new rose. Strength. Quiet, controlled, dangerous strength. Lauren unlocked her phone with steady fingers. She opened her contacts and scrolled to a name she rarely used but always trusted. Michael Reeves, attorney at law, a longtime family friend, older, experienced, and one of the first people to tell her she had a brilliant head for numbers. She pressed call. The phone rang twice. "Lauren?" Michael's voice came through, calm and warm. "It's late. Are you all right?" Her voice was soft but steady. "No. I need your help." She didn't ramble. She didn't cry. She told him everything, not with emotion, not with panic, but with cold, organized details. The company logs, the hotel and dinner charges, the hidden bonus, the deleted emails she recovered, the legal email about an emergency board meeting and executive misconduct, her hidden majority stake through LRC Holdings. By the end, Michael's tone had changed completely. He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Lauren, listen carefully. There's something you need to know. The board has already scheduled an emergency meeting for Friday." She sat upright, breath catching. "What? Why?" "I can't share everything over the phone," he replied carefully. "But some of what you just described, they already suspect. There have been complaints and whispers for a while. The board hired outside counsel. That's the firm you saw in that email." Her heart pounded. "And LRC Holdings?" Michael exhaled slowly. "They've started digging into the cap table. They're starting to realize that LRC isn't just a random investor. They haven't connected it fully to you yet, but they will. And when they do, you're not just Daniel's wife. You're the controlling shareholder." A chill ran down her spine. "What does that mean for Friday?" she whispered. Michael hesitated. "It means," he said, voice low and firm, "whatever they're planning, you shouldn't watch it from the sidelines. You should walk into that meeting as the person who actually owns that room." She swallowed. "So what exactly is happening on Friday?" Another small pause. "Everything," he said. The call ended. Lauren stared through the windshield as the streetlights flickered over the empty lot. Emergency board meeting, executive misconduct, LRC Holdings, her. Something big was coming. A quiet thought whispered through her mind. "If they think I'm done, they haven't seen me prepared." The room filled with the sharp sound of paper slamming onto the table. Not one paper, dozens. Lauren dropped them with purpose, her expression fierce, her breath steady. The intensity of the moment pulsed through the air like electricity. Her small home office, usually quiet and gentle, had become a war room. Screens glowed, documents sprawled, evidence piled higher and higher. Tonight she wasn't breaking. She was building. This was no longer shock or heartbreak. This was preparation. Her heartbeat steadied as she scanned the papers. Every piece meant something. Every detail connected to a bigger picture she now understood clearly, and she wasn't doing this alone. Lauren sat down quietly, breathing slowly as the earlier chaos settled into focus. The last few days had ripped her apart, but this night felt different. She felt stronger, sharper, like someone rediscovering a part of herself she had forgotten. A part that planned, a part that protected, a part that built. Michael had been clear on their last call. Don't show up to that board meeting with feelings. Show up with facts, documents, timelines, witnesses. Let the numbers speak for you. So she had made a list. Evidence she needed. People she could trust. She reached for her notebook, the same one she used years ago when she tracked her early investments. She flipped through pages filled with financial calculations and scribbled dreams, proof of how long she'd been preparing for a life she thought would be shared. Now those skills were the very tools she needed to uncover everything. Her phone buzzed. A message from Maria Lopez, an HR specialist who had joined the company 3 years earlier. Lauren helped Maria when she was struggling financially, quietly paying part of her certification fees. Maria never forgot. "I'm outside. I brought what you asked for." Lauren's chest tightened, not from fear but gratitude. She opened her door. Maria walked in, nervous but determined. Behind her were David Collins, a data analyst Lauren once mentored, and Riley Stone, a junior developer she helped during a family emergency last year. 3 people, 3 witnesses, 3 quiet allies. None of them looked like fighters. All of them were loyal. Maria clutched a sealed folder. "These are the HR complaints. The ones that went missing from the main system," she said, voice trembling. "I had a bad feeling when I was told to archive them off the record, so I made copies first." She opened the folder. Inside were printed complaints about late meetings, inappropriate comments, uncomfortable closeness, Daniel and Jenna's names appearing more than once. Lauren thanked her softly. Next, David stepped forward and opened his laptop, turning it toward her. "I pulled timestamps from the company card purchases," he said. "The finance system flags unusual patterns, remember? You're the one who asked us to build that alert feature. I exported the logs before anyone changed the rules. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, duplicate entries, all tied to Daniel's executive card. And the timing? Late evenings, weekends, overlapping with Jenna's work calendar. Then Riley stepped forward and placed a USB drive on the table. Security footage from last month, he said quietly. Our team had to test the new badge system, so we had temporary access to camera archives. I made a copy before IT wiped the older recordings. Lauren blinked. Why would you do that? Riley swallowed hard. Because I saw you walk out alone more than once, and I saw them stay. Her throat tightened. Thank you. They could all lose their jobs for this, but they still came, because she had once helped them when no one else did. As they left one by one, the room turned into a battlefield of proof. Screenshots, HR statements, finance spreadsheets, security footage logs, shared calendar overlaps, hotel receipts with matching timestamps, deleted messages recovered. The silent army had delivered more than she expected. Lauren stacked everything neatly. Everything had a place. Everything had a purpose. This wasn't just emotional revenge. This was corporate justice. Then she remembered something. The locked drawer. The drawer she'd never let Daniel touch. The one she kept hidden since the beginning. Her pulse quickened. She stood, walked to the drawer and retrieved the key she kept tucked inside an old book. The key slid in smoothly. The drawer opened with a soft click. Inside lay the documents that changed everything. Her original investment contracts, early purchase agreements, stock ownership statements, proof of her financial backing before Daniel ever built his name. On top of the stack, ownership summary, Lauren Carter via LRC Holdings, 52% majority shareholder. Her breath caught. This wasn't just evidence. This was power. The kind he never knew she had. The kind he never bothered to ask about. The kind that could end him. Lauren slid the documents into her bag carefully, almost ceremonially. As the zipper closed, her hand tightened into a fist. Her eyes burned, not with tears but with cold determination. This was no longer a battle. This was an ending. A quiet whisper formed in her mind. Let's see how he smiles at the board meeting now. The boardroom erupted before a single word was spoken. Chairs scraped back sharply. Papers rustled. Voices clashed loudly in rushed whispers. The energy was tense enough to feel against the skin. No one sat comfortably. No one smiled naturally. It was as if the air itself had been shaken awake. At the far wall, a large screen displayed the agenda. Emergency board meeting. Executive conduct and governance review. The door flew open. Daniel Carter walked in with confidence that bordered on arrogance. Shoulders high and chin lifted. He wore the same smile he used to win investors. Polished, charming, rehearsed. But tonight it looked sharper, colder. Beside him was Jenna Hayes, walking half a step behind instead of beside him, as if unsure of her place. She wore a fitted blazer, heels that clicked too loudly, and confidence she had not fully earned. Her eyes darted around the room, scanning faces with a small, guarded expression. The board members stiffened at the sight. Daniel took his usual seat near the head of the table. Jenna slid into a chair slightly behind him, on the side, not at the board level. She wasn't a board member. She was here because Daniel had insisted she be present for context. But their eyes drifted, slowly, cautiously, to the far end of the polished table. To the seat no one expected to be filled. To the woman who had walked in quietly 10 minutes earlier. Lauren. She sat still, calm, hands folded over a neat stack of documents resting on the table. Her posture was composed, almost serene. She wasn't dressed for battle, just a simple, elegant outfit, but her presence carried a weight none of them could ignore. Michael sat a few chairs away from her as a legal observer for a major shareholder, introduced simply by Mr. Grayson at the beginning. He had not yet said whose interests he represented. Daniel's confident steps faltered for a fraction of a second when he finally noticed her. "Lauren," he said, surprise breaking through his charm. "What are you doing here?" His tone carried annoyance disguised as confusion. Lauren didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her presence was her answer. She kept her breathing slow, steady. She remembered what Michael told her over coffee that morning. Go, sit, say nothing until the moment is right. Let them reveal what they know, then show them what they missed. So she sat, silent, still, unshakable. While Daniel looked agitated, Lauren observed the room with quiet precision, just as she used to do with financial audits. The board members were uneasy. Some exchanged looks. One man adjusted his glasses 3 times. Another woman tapped her pen nervously against her notebook. They knew something was coming. They just didn't know from where. Jenna shifted in her seat, crossing and uncrossing her legs. She leaned toward Daniel and whispered something. He nodded, but his eyes kept flicking back toward Lauren. For the first time in a long time, he looked unsure. Lauren stayed motionless, documents in front of her, eyes soft but sharp. The boardroom door closed with a heavy thud. Silence settled. The board chair, Mr. Howard Grayson, a dignified man in his late 60s, cleared his throat. He had been with the company since the early days. He had watched Daniel grow from an ambitious dreamer into a CEO, and watched Lauren support him from the background. "Let's begin," Mr. Grayson said, voice firm. Daniel leaned back confidently. "Please," he said, "let's discuss our upcoming expansion. I prepared numbers and—" But Mr. Grayson lifted a hand. "No, the agenda has changed." Daniel's smile stalled. "Changed? Why?" Mr. Grayson's eyes swept across the table before settling on Daniel. "We need to discuss executive misconduct and governance concerns," he said. The words hit like thunder. A wave of whispers surged through the room again. Jenna stiffened, fingers tightening around her pen. Daniel gave a short laugh, forced, strained. "Misconduct? Howard, this is ridiculous. If someone filed a complaint, it's just the usual noise from employees who don't understand what real work looks like." Jenna nodded quickly beside him. Too quickly. The board members looked unimpressed. Mr. Grayson's expression remained still. "This is not noise," he said. "This involves financial irregularities, HR violations, and questionable decisions in leadership appointments, especially in the promotion of Mr. Hayes and the demotion of our long-serving Director of Finance and Strategy." Jenna swallowed. Her fingers twitched. Daniel tensed. Lauren's gaze lowered slightly, watching everything with quiet patience. Daniel scoffed. "This is absurd. If anyone should be addressing leadership performance here, it's me. I'm the one who—" He stopped mid-sentence, because Mr. Grayson raised a document and asked the question that froze the room. "Before we proceed," Mr. Grayson said calmly, "we need to confirm that our majority shareholder is present." Daniel straightened instantly, indignation flashing across his face. "I'm right here." His voice was firm, certain. Michael's eyes flicked briefly toward Lauren. Mr. Grayson didn't look at Daniel. Instead, he turned, slowly, deliberately, to the far end of the table, to where Lauren sat. "Missouri Carter," he said with great clarity, "thank you for joining us on behalf of LRC Holdings." The entire room fell into stunned silence. Daniel's eyes widened. Jenna's jaw dropped. Lauren lifted her gaze at last, her eyes calm, her posture unmoving, her power undeniable. The storm had officially begun. A single thought echoed in Lauren's mind. Now, they see. The boardroom erupted into chaos the second Lauren stood, not with shouting, with tension. The kind of tension that slammed into every chest and made the air feel too heavy to breathe. Several board members shifted in their seats. One man's pen dropped from his hand. Jenna's fingers slipped off Daniel's arm, and Daniel's face turned an alarming shade of white, as if the floor had tilted beneath him. Lauren didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The intensity of her presence was louder than any shout. Daniel broke the silence first. "Lauren," he said shakily, "you're the majority shareholder?" He laughed, but it cracked midway. "You? That's impossible." Lauren met his disbelief with calm eyes. "It's not impossible," she said softly. "It's simply something you never bothered to ask about." Board members exchanged stunned looks. Mr. Grayson leaned forward, studying Lauren with a mixture of respect and recognition. "Ms. Carter," he said, "for the record, would you like to explain your position?" Lauren nodded once, and then she opened her folder. For a moment, she paused, not to collect herself, but to absorb this moment fully. Her mind flickered back to her younger self, the girl who worked 2 jobs, the girl who invested in small companies no one believed in, the girl who saw potential in Daniel long before success touched his name. She had poured herself into his dream, believing they were building a future together. But tonight, she stood alone, not as a silent supporter, not as a wife seeking answers, but as the woman who owned more of this company than anyone sitting at that table. Her reflection ended. It was time. She placed the first document on the table. Investment contract, year 1. I invested in this company before it had a name, she said calmly, through a holding company called LRC Holdings. Second document, purchase agreement, year 2. I helped fund the first software build and early hires. Third document, additional shares record, year 3. I reinvested when we almost couldn't make payroll. She placed the final document down. Ownership summary, LRC Holdings, 52% of Carter Systems voting shares. Beneficial owner, Lauren Carter. This company grew because I believed in it, and in you, Daniel. Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came out. Jenna swallowed hard, sliding her chair back an inch. Lauren rested her hand on the stack of papers. Her voice remained steady. But belief, she continued, does not excuse betrayal. She lifted the next folder, marked in red. As majority shareholder, she said, I am exercising my right to review the conduct of the current CEO. She slid spreadsheets across the table, clearly labeled with dates and signatures. Hotel stays labeled as client meetings with no clients present. Dinners for 2 labeled as strategy sessions. Luxury charges hidden in development budgets. Board members leaned closer, eyes widening. Here are the approvals, she said, tapping the column. Signed under Daniel's executive account, not reviewed by finance, bypassing the controls I put in place when I still held the director of finance role. She opened another folder and spread out printed screenshots. Deleted emails between Daniel and Ms. Hayes, retrieved from our compliance backup. Gasps broke around the room. Daniel lunged forward. Lauren, this isn't what it looks. She raised a hand gently. He froze mid-sentence. Please don't insult my intelligence, she said. Her tone held more power than yelling ever could. She read aloud. Dinner was perfect. Let's meet again tomorrow. Same place? From Daniel to Jenna. Another. Don't worry, Jenna. I'll take care of your promotion. She won't make noise. And another. She's too focused on the numbers to notice anything. We're safe. Jenna's face drained of color. Then came the HR complaints Maria had saved. Staff reporting uncomfortable comments. Late-night work sessions. Fear of speaking up. All filed. All forwarded. All buried. Every one of these, Lauren said quietly, should have triggered an investigation. Instead, they disappeared while Daniel pushed through a demotion for me and a promotion for Ms. Hayes. Jenna's lips parted. I didn't know you owned the company, she stammered. Lauren's gaze didn't soften. You didn't need to know what I own, she replied. You just needed to respect where you work. She turned to the board. Her promotion came with unauthorized bonuses and questionable justification. Based on the evidence, I request that the board suspend Ms. Hayes from her role, effective immediately, pending full investigation. Mr. Grayson looked around the table. Heads nodded one by one. Motion to suspend Miss Hayes, he said. All in favor? Hands rose. Every one of them. The color drained from Jenna's face completely. She stood, took a step back. Another. Daniel reached toward her, but she gently moved her arm away. Her eyes glistened, not with loyalty, but with fear. Without a word, she left her chair and moved to the side wall, away from the table, away from Daniel, away from power she thought she had. Lauren inhaled slowly, letting the entire boardroom fall into silence. As majority shareholder, she said with quiet authority, I am calling for a vote on the immediate removal of Daniel Carter as CEO of Carter Systems. Daniel's voice cracked. Lauren, please, don't do this. We can talk. He stood, trembling. We built this life together. Please, I made mistakes, but Lauren didn't flinch. You made choices, she said softly, and choices have consequences. Mr. Grayson looked to her, then to the rest of the board. "Motion on the floor," he said. "Removal of Daniel Carter as CEO. Effective immediately, subject to contractual terms. All in favor?" Hands went up around the table. Slowly, heavily, but firmly. The board had spoken. The majority shareholder had led them there. Daniel sank back into his chair as if his bones couldn't hold him anymore. Tears filled his eyes. "Lauren, I'm begging you." She reached into her bag. And then, with devastating calm, she placed one more document on the table. Divorce papers. Signed. Stamped. Filed earlier that day. The entire room turned silent as stone. Daniel stared at the papers with a horror that stole his breath. Lauren slid them forward. "This," she whispered, "is also effective immediately. You will receive service through the proper channels, but I wanted you to see it now, on the same table where you thought you could cut me out." Her eyes lifted, steady, cold, unshakably clear. Inside her mind, a quiet thought surfaced. One final step, then I walk away for good. The shouting began before the boardroom door even closed behind her. Lauren walked down the hallway calmly, but behind her, Daniel's voice exploded in panic. "No, wait! Stop! You can't do this!" The intensity echoed through the entire building. People stepped out of offices, startled. Chairs rolled, papers dropped. Every employee turned toward the sound like witnesses to a storm breaking. Security moved in quickly, not rough, but firm. 2 guards escorted Daniel Carter, the former CEO, out of the boardroom he once ruled. Company policy required security presence whenever an executive was removed to protect everyone, including him. His face was pale. His hands shook. His suit jacket hung crooked from where he'd grabbed it in desperation. He tried to reach for Lauren, even as guards guided him down the hallway. "Lauren, please, please, don't leave me like this. We can fix this." But she kept walking, not fast, not angry, just steady, as if the weight she had carried for years had finally lifted. Employees whispered as she passed, not in judgment, in awe. Her quiet strength had become visible to everyone. Jenna Hayes stood near the elevators, mascara smudged, her face drained of all confidence. A security officer from HR waited beside her with a folder, her suspension notice. She didn't move to help Daniel. She didn't speak. She simply stepped backward, as if she didn't recognize the man she had clung to. Then without a word, she took the folder, signed the acknowledgement with shaking hands, and left the building in the opposite direction. Daniel watched her go, his last ally, gone. He collapsed to his knees for a moment as the guards continued guiding him toward the exit. Lauren finally stepped outside the building. The sunlight hit her hair, warm and soft, bending across her face like a quiet blessing. She stopped at the top of the steps, herself framed by the glass doors behind her, the same doors she had entered years ago with hope and love. Her eyes softened as memories rose uninvited. A younger Lauren, tired, hopeful, determined, counting the last dollars she had saved to invest in Daniel's early concept. A tiny apartment, an old laptop with a cracked hinge. Nights where she whispered to herself, "Keep going. It will be worth it." She saw the girl who studied under flickering lamps, who believed in growth, who dreamed quietly. She saw the girl who thought love and business could grow side by side, and she saw the path that led her here, stronger, wiser, whole. The flashback faded gently. Present Lauren stood straighter, shoulders relaxed. Her breathing was calm, even peaceful. A small smile touched her lips, her voice soft like a thought carried on the wind. Whispered, "Sometimes silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's preparation." Inside the building, through the glass walls, she saw Daniel one last time. Security walked him toward the exit. His steps were heavy, defeated. His shirt was wrinkled. His hair was messy. The confident CEO was gone. All that remained was a man who had destroyed his own world by taking her for granted. He looked at her through the glass, eyes full of panic, regret, desperation. But she didn't move toward him. Not anymore. This was not her burden. This was her freedom. She turned away from the glass as the guards led him out of the main doors. A black car pulled up to the curb, the one Michael had arranged to ensure she left safely and calmly. She stepped toward it, each step feeling lighter than the last. She didn't celebrate. She didn't smirk. She simply inhaled. long and steady. This was her closure. She opened the door, ready to enter the next chapter of her life, one where her strength would no longer be hidden behind anyone. She paused for a moment, looking back once at the building she helped build. Not with regret, not with sorrow, just acknowledgement. Then she took her seat inside the car. The door closed. She exhaled. For the first time in years, it sounded like relief. Her phone buzzed. A message from Michael, her lawyer. Board resolution passed. You're now officially both majority shareholder and interim chair. Also, there's something else you should see. She stared at the words as the car pulled away from the building. Something else? What now? The camera would fade out before revealing the answer, leaving curiosity wide open for a future chapter. A quiet voice in her mind whispered, "The story isn't over yet." I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.